Hello, I'm Mr. Orange and this is video hashtag 610. In this video, I'm going to continue with my Winx Club rewrite. We're on to episode 4. Make sure to check out my previous episodes. I'm so excited about this episode because I have so many ideas. And I have so many ideas for the world building. I've been thinking about this for a month throughout March. Anyway, let's get into this video. Season 1, Episode 4. Welcome to Magix. So I've chosen this title for this episode. This is the title of Winx Club Season 1, Episode 2. This is the episode where Bloom sees Magix for the first time. We will introduce Bloom to the magic universe. Bloom and Stella will be, starting their year 7 at this boarding school. They will have induction day and we will have world building in this episode. So, I'm so excited to share those with you. For this episode, I want to focus mostly on Bloom and Stella being introduced to Magix and have this episode mostly focused on the world building. Let Bloom settle in, let's not scare her off too early. Anyway, here's the world map. I'm just gonna stop here and just talk about the Earth's world building. Like we know, the Earth in Winx Club is similar to Earth in our world, so we're gonna keep things similar with each other. And yes, Gardenia's in North America. It's in USA. It's in New York. It's a city in New York. I'm going to use this map as a guide to help me create the other worlds in the magical universe, such as Magix, Domino, or, like Solaria. But of course, I will talk about the Magix world building much later on. But this is just to help you guide out the Earth's world building. The planet we just left. So for this episode, it's going to be 5th of September. We're continuing from where we left off. In the last episode, we ended the episode with 5th of September. It's where Bloom, Kiko, and Stella used the Solarian ring to transport them all the way to Magix. And that's how we kind of put in a cliffhanger. Because that's how it happened in the original show. So if you remember from our last episode, Bloom, Kiko, and Stella, was sent through the portal. And I did not bring Mike and Vanessa along with them. I've explained my reasoning for that in my last episode, so do watch that. So we're gonna have the episode start off with Bloom, Stella, Kiko, and their luggages land on Magix, and they're on this place. In the original, we did have them land on like a foresty area. However, in this version, I'm gonna have them land in a suburban area. We're going to make Magix look a little bit more modern. So as they land, we get a bird's eye view of the area, and we see Alfea from the distance. Bloom and Kiko are amazed by everything they're seeing. Everything is so magical and fantastical. It's like she's in a dream. Bloom misses her parents already, and she shares a tear. However, Stella reassures her that can always contact them whenever she can. Like, she can always call them, text them, email them. However, also, in Magix, people use magical smartphones, and she can always use like a holographic text or images. And it can always be like she's already with them. So they press on and move forward. Also, I mentioned in the past that I made Bloom and Mike and Vanessa and the people in Gardenia sound a bit more New Yorker. I think that's what I'm gonna have Bloom sound like. Like imagine a Fox's Bloom, but with our New York accent. I think. And I think I'm gonna have Mitzi sound like Heather from Total Drama. So imagine Mitzi with Heather's voice. But with Stella, I want her to have a Southern American accent. So somewhere along the lines of Texas. Because I think I want to have Stella have that Southern Belle accent. Make her sound distinct. And I kind of associate her with Texas because I think in the show we have references of Stella being a cowgirl and doing cowgirl dances, and there was a couple of instances like rodeo Stella, and I think that's a fun idea. And I think Solaria being like a Texas theme is such a fun idea for me. So yeah, we're gonna have Stella have South American, Southern American accent. So as they walk on, they are finally here. Stella, Bloom, and Kiko face to face with this building. They're in front of Alfea Fairy School. And then they meet Deputy Head Teacher Mrs. Griselda. She is not happy seeing Stella and Bloom because, she is strict. We're gonna keep the things similar from the original, like Focus and Cineloom. However, we're gonna change something. You know the incidents that Stella did in the original. Well, we're not gonna have that incident happening on Alfea. We're gonna have Stella doing this in a primary school. She used to study at Magix primary school. And she did this chemical explosion thing in year six because she wanted to make a new shade of pink. And she apologizes to Griselda and promises that her father would have paid for all the damages. I think that's a good idea for me to add. Also, because they're starting year seven. This is their secondary school. Whatever incident happened, they could have happened in primary school, and I don't want Stella being a year older than Bloom. So this is why I wanted it like this. And just so you know, it is the school system is kind of different in the UK. In primary school, you have year 1 to year 6. In secondary school, you have year 7 to year 11. And then college or sixth form would be like year 12 and 13. Before primary school, you would have had something like a nursery or preschool. You would have that. So yeah, that's just to give you a gist of like schools in the UK. And so I'm adopting that idea in here. In primary school, you're most likely to be at the range of ages 5 to age 11. In secondary school, you're likely to be ages between age 11 to age 16. And in college, you're more likely to be like 16 over and likely up to be 18. But some people take vocational courses in college, so they may have extended ages. But that's another argument for another day. So I want Alfea Fairy School to follow like a secondary school system in the UK. Also, I want to add, like normal people in Solaria, they would have studied at primary school. However, in Stella's case, she studied her primary school in Magix because we know her incidents. Chicks know her a year before because they wanted to track her, ring and such, and we want that. And the reason why Stella studies at Magix is because she doesn't want to study at Solaria, because whenever she studies at Solaria, she gets depressed about her parents and everything else. So she kind of hid her way in Magix. So I'm gonna remove the part where Bloom lies about being Veranda of Callisto. I think this is a useless plot point they add in this episode that they never bring up again in the future episodes. So I don't want that here. However, we will have a character called Veranda of Callisto because I think that would be a fun idea to have. So while they're lining up, the first person that they see, getting registered is Eleanor from Delona. I don't think we get any information about Delona in any of the media I see. So what I added is that Delona, there's not much known about this planet, and I think Delona is a private planet. It doesn't want to be known by other planets. And I think it's because the people in Delona are really shy. So I think that's probably why. And that could explain why Eleanor is like a shy and timid person. After Delona, the girl named Veranda shows up and it's her turn to be registered. And she is from a planet called Callisto. And we do get information about Callisto in both Cinelim and Focus, and I want to merge the two descriptions together. So the place called Callisto will have both of the descriptions. So the planet is known for its rings, and it has artistic traditions, and it attracts so many tourists. So I get the idea from the both dubs. And then after Eleanor, Stella gets registered. After her spat with Griselda, obviously, you know, Griselda, brings out the things she did in primary school. And then after that, Bloom gets registered. Bloom gets nervous about, being registered. And soon after, everyone else gets registered. And also, I want to point out, Alfea Ferry School is going to be co-ed. So we're going to have male and female and non-binary fairies, registered to this school. All schools in Magix and all planets are going to be co-ed. We're not going to have a school just for girls. We're not going to have a school just for boys. Come on, we're in year 2025. We don't need to, isolate one type of identity. I think I want to cut out the part where we see the teachers, like Mrs. Dufour, Palladium and Whiskers. I mean, I don't mind the scene. I think it's a cute way of showing the teachers, but because I have more teachers showing up in this school, I want this scene to happen a bit more later on. And yes, this school is having more than 5 teachers. We're gonna have more teachers in the school. Like each school in each wherever you are, we're gonna have more teachers. Also, for additional note, I want to keep Griselda have her Focus voice. So after every year 7 gets registered, they all wait outside in front of Alfea. They all find a seat to sit down. Stella and Bloom sit with each other. We have male fairies, non-binary fairies, and female fairies. They're all sitting down in front of Alfea. We have all kinds of fairies. Bloom and Stella sit next to each other, and we get to see some Easter eggs of our favorite characters. And just so you know, all the female characters from the Alfea, they are going to be obviously the female fairies, but who are going to be the male fairies? I'm actually gonna have the characters that were in the Red Fountain, the specialists. I'm going to have them be the fairies of Alfea. So Brandon, Sky, Timmy, and Riven, they are going to be fairies, as well as Bishop. So I'm gonna change them into fairies. So yeah, we're gonna have them. Ultimately, like, fairies are going to be the main focus in this show. So why are they not the most focused characters? And we are always going back to these characters. Why is it a specialist? I mean, not to show like fairies are more important than specialists, but this show is about fairies. So yes, we're going to have the characters like Sky and Brandon be fairies, and I think it makes sense because um, to me in my head it makes sense for fairies to date fairies and specialists to date specialists, witches to date witches. Not that I think fairies can date a witch or fairy can date a specialist whenever they please, but I do think it's really weird though, like how each six of the fairies like date a specialist. I just think it's a random. Like, wouldn't you just not date the one that like the characters you meet immediately, not from a different entire school? And I feel like the specialist wouldn't be always with them whenever they need. Like if you want your boyfriend friends, you want them with you most of the time. You don't want them always distance. So I made that decision why I wanted the male, the specialist, be um, the male fairies, and obviously we will have specialists, obviously, but that will be explained. Don't worry, I'm gonna explain Red Fountain and all that much later on. But the characters like you consider as like the specialists, like Sky, Riven, Timmy, and Brandon, they are going to be fairies. And I also feel like I want them to be a little bit more useful. I don't want them just being like sword fighters, I want them to actually use magic. Because whenever in the future episodes, whenever Sky or Brandon or anyone else wants to help the Winx, they seem really useless with their weaponry. Like it would be nice if these our characters had magic with them. So yes, we're gonna have give these characters some magic powers. And yes, Helia will be, coming. He will be introduced, second season, and Nabi will be introduced third season. And Helia, he will be a fairy. And Nabi, I think I'm gonna keep him as a wizard. Don't worry, they will be explained much later on, hopefully. And since we're gonna give them magic powers, I already have an idea what the magic power is gonna be. So Sky is going to have water powers. Brandon's going to have, forest powers, tree powers. Um, River's going to have fire powers. And Timmy is going to have light powers. And we also have non binary fairies as well in the show. And who are they going to be? Actually, I have ideas for that. The entire characters from Tinkerbell franchise, all of those characters are going to be non-binary fairies, and I'm going to have those characters be included in the Winx Club, and they are going to be students of Alfea. So yes, we're going to have that. I did mention though that these are year sevens, and Alfea Ferry School is based on UK secondary school, and year seven they're mainly going to be ages 11 and 12. Um, there's other years, year 8, year 9, year 10, and year 11, they are already inside the school. They already, because, they already know what's going on in the school, so they are already taking lessons inside. So, just to, for a preface, these 11, 12-year-olds, they're starting the year in year 7 for the, season 1. Hopefully, in the future seasons, we can have these characters age up. I hope I explained things a little bit more clear here. By the way, it's called an induction day. But I remember in year seven when I started secondary school, we the first day was an induction day, and this is where you get explained things what will happen, throughout your school year. So it's kind of like an introduction for new students. Also, by the way, just like in the show, we're going to have the characters from Alfea wear casual outfits. So we're not going to have them wearing uniforms like they do in real life fictional schools, like in Harry Potter or whatever. I like that in Alfea, characters get to have self expression in their clothes. And that is what Alfea is about. It's about self expression. And additionally, I do think it's really weird that in this club, the Winx do date the specialists, like from a different school. It's very unlikely that you're going to date someone outside your school. Most people I know from my school, they're most likely going to date the person who are also in the school. I would have classmates who dating each other because they share the same school. I just wanted to point that out from my explanation about red fountain thing earlier. So that's another reason why I wanted characters like Sky, Brandon, Timmy, Riven, Bishop, Spencer. I wanted them to be, fairies. And just to, for clarification, the female characters from Alfea are the female fairies. The specialists from Red Fountain, who were originally the specialists, all those characters are the male fairies, and they are from Alfea. And Tinkerbell characters, they're all non-binary. So characters like Tinkerbell, Silver Mist, Fawn, and so some of the male fairies, I forgot their names. They are going to be non-binary, and they're going to be in the school. You can have ideas as well, what sort of characters you want in the school. That would be so much fun. Maybe characters from other shows or whatever. That would be so much fun to have. Also, I did add, other things from different shows and movies. Like, for example, I did have the four turtles be the ghouls and Shrek be the troll. So, I did include that. So, I don't mind having other shows being introduced in my rewrite, because I'm allowed to, I have fun, I have creative control over this, and I don't think they're gonna sue me for this. So yeah, in a way, you can say this is like a massive Wiz Club crossover with your favorite shows, or my favorite shows at least. So while the students are sitting down, Mrs. Griselda lays out some rules about the school, like how she did in the original show. Let's just hope that Mrs. Griselda hasn't frightened the students too much. And then here comes the head mistress of Alfea Fairy School. It's Mrs. Farragonda. And this is where Mrs. Farragut steps in and she introduces everyone to Alfea Fairy School. And I like it how she did it in the Nick version. I like how she panned towards the school. So I want to have it this way as well. And I'm gonna have Mrs. Farragonda go alone. I'm not gonna have Palladium or Defoe, stand beside her. At this point, I'm going to change the script. And also, I think I'm going to change Mrs. Griselda and Mrs. Farragonda's title. I'm going to refer them as Professor Griselda and Professor Farragonda. So all the titles of the teacher are no longer Mr. or Mrs. They are professors. So Professor Palladium, Professor Griffin, yeah, they will all have Professor as their title. Reason for this is because I think it's a simple title. Every teacher can have this title, and it's also because Mrs. and Mr. As a title, those are kind of traditional titles, and I do think they are gender biased. So, what would a non-binary title be if they were Mr. or Mrs.? Yeah, I think those are kind of outdated. We're in 2025. Let's start being inclusive to non-binary teachers. So therefore, everyone is going to be called professor as their title. I think I like that idea. And since we're talking about changing the script, this is where Mrs. Farragonda is going to take the students towards the assembly hall. And this is where Mrs. Farragonda is going to explain the information about the Alfea, information about Magix. So basically, this is world building. And in a way, it's like Miss Farragon explaining this to the students is also a way of Miss Farragon explaining it to the audience. I think that would be a great way because the as viewers, you do not know everything about the school, about the world building in general, and this will be very interesting. And I think as if I put myself in Miss Farragonda's shoes, it would be great if the viewers um got the information out about the world building of Magix, and I think that would be really interesting. And I think it would be helpful as well for viewers to to get the gist of where they are and everything. So while the students are, directed towards the assembly hall, Bloom is amazed by seeing everything around her while she walks towards it. She stays beside Stella. Stella supports her, and all the way through her journey. And as they arrive at the assembly hall, the student takes some seats. Then, Professor Farragonda guides everyone with, information about Magix and Alfea, but starting off with Alfea, of course. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Alfea first. I did, talk about Alfea in the second episode, but I will explain things further here. So this school is called Alfea Fairy School. It's a co-ed school, so males, females, and non-binaries can study at the school. We have fairies of all shapes and sizes, races, and all kinds and abilities. We may have fairies of different ethnic backgrounds, or fairies of different body types, and maybe some characters with, artistic backgrounds or disability backgrounds. Um, it, we have all range. And I think I'm going to have Althea Fairy School look a little bit different. In this school is a secondary school, and it will have 5 years. So year sevens, year eights, year nines, year tens, and year elevens, they will be based in this school. The students are of ages 11 to 16. Year sevens are ages of 11 and 12, and year 11s are ages of 15 and 16. So this is kind of similar to schools in the UK. There are 5 main floors in the school, as well as an attic floor and a basement floor. Each floor corresponds with each year. So the first floor corresponds to year 7. Second floor is year 8. The third floor is year 9. The fourth floor is year 10. And the fifth floor is year 11. The west wing of the school will mostly be classrooms, and the east wing of the school will mostly be dormitory. And the center of the school will mostly be staff-based. So this is where the staff will possibly hang out, and more important things might be in the middle. And as we focus on the west wing for a minute, um, we will each floor will have the same things of each other. So each floor will have normal classrooms. They will have science labs for science subjects, computer rooms. They will have workshops. They will have kitchens, cafeteria. Each floor will have a cafeteria. Each each floor will have a drama theater, like drama club, and each floor will have a gym. I hope you get the idea for the West Wing. And if we move towards the East Wing, like I said, this is like a co-ed school. So males, non-binaries, and females, will have will be in the school. In the East Wing, it will be grouped though. Like the the male fairies, they will most likely be based on the left side of the East Wing, and the non-binaries are most likely going to be in the center of the East Wing, and the female fairies are mostly going to be the right side of the East Wing. And each floor will be each year, like I said before. And each dorm will have like a 6 set of dorms, like six in each area. 6 people will likely to live with each other. Each room, they will have their own rooms. In in the original, characters would have had like roommates. Like Flora would have a roommate with Bloom, and Misa would have a roommate with Techna. However, I think for me, I would like to have these characters have their own rooms. So Bloom gets her own room, Techna gets her own room. It's just so that they can have their own independent room, and they can have own unique flair to their own rooms. And I think that will be a fun way to have them have independence. They will have like bedrooms, the living areas. I guess this is like the common area. They will have that. They will have their own kitchens. Yeah, I think if you imagine a university or like boarding school, imagine that. So like they will have their own like dining area and things like that. Then we focus on the outside of the school. We will obviously have the front yard, and we will have that well with water underneath. We will also have a backyard of Alfea, and this is where we will have, like a football pitch and outdoor gym area. So, like, if they want to do sports outside, this is where they can do it. They will also have garden area for those who want to do gardening and things like that. So I guess overall that will be the layout of the school, of Alfea Fairy School. And now we're going to talk about the staff or the faculty of Alfea Fairy School, as well as the subjects that is taught by the teachers. First thing first, we have the head teacher, Professor Faragonda. I think that's pretty obvious. Miss Faragonda runs Alfea Fairy School. I think I'm gonna keep her personality how she was in the Focus dub. She kind of had that grandmother vibe to her, and kind of like a fairy godmother. And then we have a deputy head teacher, Professor Griselda. I think in the show they say that Griselda is head of discipline, but that's basically a deputy head teacher. She would probably, help, students, follow the rules. And just like in this show, we're gonna have her strict self. And I do like her portrayal in the Focus dub. I think, it really, shows her strict personality really well. And then we have a second deputy head teacher, Professor Radcliffe. So I guess in the original show, they didn't have more than one deputy head teachers. But I guess in my school, we only had like two deputy head teachers. I guess that would make sense because, a secondary school is really large and you need more than one deputy head teachers. So, yeah, this school is going to have two deputy head teachers. And obviously, Professor Griselda is the more strict one. I'm going to have Professor Radcliffe be a bit more linear personality. So while Griselda shows a strict personality, Radcliffe will show a bit more therapeutic, a bit more understanding personality. I'm going to have Professor Radcliffe be a male teacher. Although in my school, I did have a teacher called Mrs. Radcliffe, and so I'm basing this character off of her. But I'm going to have this character be a male because, to contrast from a female deputy head teacher. And so be it, we have a female head teacher, a female deputy head teacher, and a male deputy head teacher. So we have Professor Radcliffe, who is the deputy head teacher, who is male and is kind of the more therapeutic, bit more understanding deputy head teacher. Okay, for this, I find tricky to explain. I'm just gonna explain it. Like, in school, we would have this subject called English. This is where we would be taught, reading, writing, basic vocabulary. We would read books and all that. You know. When I was in year 10, this was when we had GCSEs. And I think this sort of subject got split into two. And, we had a subject called English language and we had a subject called English literature. So the English language, that would be, that subject is where we would continue talking about like basic English, reading, writing, speaking, and listening in English. And English literature is where we will be, looking at plays, books, different literature medias. And that's where we would be taught like Romeo and Juliet or things like that. So I had a struggle of naming the next subject because I don't want to call it English. I think that's a terrible title for the subject, and I think it's different in each country because I think like in countries like Spain or Italy, I don't think it's called English because obviously they're not from England, so it's not going to be called English. And obviously, these characters are based in Magix, so they will have their own set of speaking and all that. So I'm guessing I'm gonna call this subject main language. So I'm gonna call it main language. This is where students at Alfea will be taught basic reading, writing, speaking, and listening in this language. Obviously, we will talk in English, but the language in Magix might be different. Like, when Bloom, starts to this whole universe, obviously they're gonna have different language. But for our sake, obviously in our ears, they are speaking in English, so we're gonna have that. However, we're gonna call it main language and this, yeah. So the subject is called main language. So we're gonna have our main language teacher. And I think I'm gonna call this teacher Professor Parrish. I think I'm gonna name this after my teacher, Miss Parrish, who was my English teacher in year 7. So Professor Parrish is going to be the main language teacher. I'm gonna have her personality be friendly and that she loves children. She likes the company of children. I'm going to have her be a stereotypical teacher you'll find in like kids, cartoons. Think of teachers like from Timothy Goes to School or Mrs. Hooley from Balamori. Or if you watch Matilda, she's gonna have a similar personality to Mrs. Honey. And I think I'm gonna have Professor Parrish be a female. And so, Professor Parrish, she is teaching main language. And in main language, they're obviously gonna learn how to read, write, speak, and listen in this language. They're going to learn how to read text and all that. And obviously, how you expect learning English in your own school, that's basically it. Additionally, they are going to learn how to read like scrolls, or like spell books, or like ancient scriptures as well. Because remember, this is a magical fairy school, and this is based on like Alfea fantasy. So obviously, they're going to like learn to read those sort of like scriptures and things like that. So this subject should be useful for the students, especially if they want to communicate in magics. For the next subject, we're going to have literature. So obviously, we're going to have a literature teacher, and that's going to be Professor Shakespeare. And yes, the writer of Romeo and Juliet, the famous writer of all. And I think I'm going to have the character based off of William Shakespeare, obviously. And this is where we read books, plays, poetries, musical lyrics. This is where we're gonna, read Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, all those things. And who knows, we might read some like odd fairy tales or Greek mythology or maybe some Celtic mythology. Or maybe we can learn some grim fairy tales or maybe stories from like Disney. It's for those things. And I'm sure, like in Magix, they will have their own like certain stories, and this is it. And I think in the Focus dub, we did have some references of like characters reading. I remember in the Cloud Tower episode, I think Miss Faragonda brings up a story where it's about a gnoll and the troll, and I'm sure like Bloom brings it up as well. So obviously they're gonna have literature as a subject in Alfea, and I guess any other school in Magix, and I'm sure they're gonna have fun with those things. And the next subject we have is charms, and this subject is taught by Professor Houdini. And I'm gonna have Professor Houdini be a non-binary character. And in Charms, this is where they learn how to cast spells. It's like in Charms in Harry Potter, where that famous line Leviosa. This also reminds me of that episode where Flora tried to recite a spell, but she had a daydream about Helia. So yeah, that's what this subject's going to be about. Let me explain the next one. It's cool how you're taught a different language. In my school, we were taught French or Spanish, which is really cool. You get to learn languages from different countries. Well, we're gonna have that in Magix, and obviously, these people are going to learn foreign language. So I'm gonna have this subject be Simlish. Yeah, so I'm gonna have the characters learn Simlish in the school because why not? I thought this was a funny idea, but I kind of like that I did this. So basically, we're gonna have Simlish and obviously taught by a Simlish teacher where they are going to learn how to speak like Sims. So it's a language and it's one of the languages in Magix. Of course, there are other languages too. We have languages like Pig's Latin, foreign languages from the past. There are also other languages from Lord of the Rings. I forgot the name of the language, but you know. But obviously, I'm not going to have all of those subjects. But obviously, in some schools, they will be taught those languages. In Alfea Fairy School, they are taught Simlish. So here we go. And the teacher is going to be a basic Sim character. I'm going to have this character be a female. And I think I'm gonna have this character be just as dumb as a regular Sims character, who uses computer all day, doesn't know how to deal with a raging fire. So yeah, this is going to be a disastrous teacher. So yes, we're gonna have that. So the name is Professor Susu. The next subject we're going to have is maths. And just like maths in the real world, it's going to be like that in the rest of the world. And maths is a universal language that must be taught by everyone. I feel like, it's a compulsory subject. I think it's really important to learn about maths. And I guess it's important to learn about maths whether you are a human or not. So I guess, it's a universal subject that must be taught. And it's taught by Professor Pryor, who is based off my actual teacher, Mr. Pryor. In my school, I had a teacher called Mr. Pryor. I had him for year 7 all the way to year 9. I had him for year 8 as well. I had him for year 7, year 8, and year 9. And what you know about Mr. Pryor is that he talked really fast when I was a school. So I'm gonna have that trait be present in this character. So whenever he talks, he has a motor mouth, which means that he talks really fast when he talks. So that's that. The next subject we have is advanced maths. This is something like Techno would take. It's about maths that are quite complex, so they will solve something like mathematical equations that could be too complex for an average person. And both in maths and advanced maths, they're also gonna have to learn magic along with the maths additionally. Also in advanced maths is taught by a teacher called Professor Trigonometry, who is a non-binary character. The next subject we're going to have is business, and the teacher is going to be Professor Sugar, and is based off Lord Sugar from The Apprentice. But is I'm gonna have this character be gender bent version of Lord Sugar. If you've seen The Apprentice in the UK, she will have that personality. Just look up Apprentice in the YouTube. I think you'll find something about Lord Sugar. Anyway, in this subject, students will learn how to make profit, learn how to make money, learn how to sell products. This is what the subject's going to be about. This is for students who want to, learn to, start work or get into business. So this is what this subject's going to be about: helping students in practical world. The next subject we're going to have is basic science, and it's taught by Professor Einstein. And yes, I'm gonna have this character based on Einstein. The character is going to be a male character, and I'm gonna have this based on science in Earth. And I guess this sort of science applies to all science throughout the magical universe. So it's similar to maths in this universe. Basic science is going to be similar. But the reason I'm gonna call this basic science is because we're gonna have different subjects, and they are going to be a bit more Magix biased. So this is why it's called basic science. So yeah. So when it comes to general sciences, geology, biology, chemistry, physics, the basic ones, this is where it's gonna be taught. The next subject we're going to have is creature studies class, and in this subject, students are going to learn about creatures, whether they are magical or not. And this doesn't have to be creatures. These can be like human type creatures. Um, Basically, these characters are learning about facts about different type of monsters or beings, whether it's like a vampire, gargoyles, dragons, witches, fairies, regular humans, deers, dolphins. This is what this subject's going to be about, as well as other microorganisms like planktons and zooplanktons. This is what this subject's going to be about, and they're going to learn about how to interact with these creatures or beings, learning about taxonomy, classifications of these creatures, learning about their strengths and weaknesses, how to deal with them in the when you're present with them, which is important because I think sometimes these characters will have to face like a character or a creature. Something that they will never know. Maybe they need to learn something about their own creature, like let's say they are fairies, so they're gonna have to learn about being a fairy. This is what this subject's going to be about. So yeah. And this subject is taught by Professor Pegasus, who is a non-binary character. Um, I think I'm gonna have this character be like a half centaur, and they're going to have like pets like a magical dragon along with them. Yeah, that's their character. So Professor Pegasus teaches creature studies. By the way, I think I'm gonna have Professor Pegasus to have a pet dragon, and I think I'm gonna call this dragon Spike from My Little Pony. Enjoy with that. The next subject that's going to be taught is called Transfiguration. So this is the subject where Professor Whiskers is going to teach. And it's not just going to be about like transforming yourself into a different creature, but it's also just transforming in general. So like it's about transforming yourself into a different object or transforming an object to a different object. Basically, that's what this subject is about, like transforming anything. I also think that in the future seasons, you know, when they earn Charmix and Enchantix, we're going to have Professor Whiskers teach about this because you know this is also about transfiguration. So yes, we're gonna have this be put in the same umbrella. And since we're going to talk about Professor Whiskers, I think I'm gonna keep his personality just how he was in the Cinelume dub. And I like that in the Cinelume dub that he's a leprechaun and you know he has an Irish accent. So I'm gonna keep that in the this version. And yes, we're gonna have that. I like that. And the next subject we're going to have is herbology. And this is basically a plant version of creature studies, but everything's plants. But also learning to use plants in certain situations, or learning how to grow plants, learning plants from outdoors and anywhere else. Also learning about fungi, and also learning to use plants in potions. So basically, this is Flora's favorite subject. And this subject is going to be taught by Professor Sunflower. I think I'm gonna have this character be a female, and I'm gonna have her be a crazy plant lady. You know how there's crazy cat lady? She's a crazy plant lady. The next subject we have is Potionology. And in this subject, students learn how to brew potions, make potions. Everything to do with potions is right here. And this subject is taught by Professor Palladium, you know, the sassy elf. I'm gonna have Professor Palladium be transgender. So Professor Palladium was once a female and now is a male. And I'm gonna have Professor Palladium be a homosexual, like how he was in the original dub. And I think I'm gonna have you know have Professor Palladium have like a flamboyant voice, and I want him. I also want him to have a lisp in his voice. I know that in the second season he has an attraction for Professor Avalon, so I want Professor Palladium to be a sassy gay elf, and that would be great. I also wonder, like, if I'm gonna include alchemy as a subject. I wonder if that should be under Potionology, or maybe if that should be a separate subject. Because I think in the Harry Potter world, they describe alchemy as like a part of Potionology. But I guess I'm gonna have that under, Potionology. The next subject we're going to have is astronomy, and in this subject we learn about the magical universe. You know, everything to do with the space and outside of the planets. This is what this subject is going to be about. A bit more scientific and imaginative. And just so you know, magical universe is completely different to the universe in the real world. And it's going to be taught by Professor Celestia, and she's based on Queen Celestia from My Little Pony, but as you know, as a humanoid person. And I think The next subject that is taught in Alfea Fairy School is Technomagic. So in this subject, students learn about sci-fi technology that exists in the Winx Club universe. This includes anything that powers machines, with using technomagic, robotics, sci-fi gadgets or gizmos, sci-fi weapons, teleportation gadgets, transportation gadgets, all of those things. I think someone like Techno would like this subject. And the teacher of Technomagic is Professor Plum. He is a robo fairy, and yes, he is based on Professor Plum from Cluedo. The next subject that is taught in Alfea Fairy School is History of Magics. And this subject is taught by Professor Caesar, named after Julius Caesar. But I'm gonna have this teacher be non-binary, and also I'm gonna have this character be a ghost. Reason for this because I was inspired by the Harry Potter character, who was also like a history teacher of that franchise. And so, in history of magics, obviously they're gonna learn about history of events that have happened in magics and magical universe. That includes like events from Domino, but obviously everything's going to be from like a magic's point of view. I think it really depends where you are when you're talking about history, because I think this applies in the real world as well. Because I think in the UK, you are taught like history based on UK's perspective. Like I remember learning about Henry VIII in school, but I don't think I learned anything about American history as a kid. But I also think like people in the Americas, I don't know if they were taught Henry VIII, and I don't think they needed to, because why would they need to learn about British history? Because I don't know if it would be relevant, but I do not know because I'm not an expert on what was taught in America. But from what I know from the UK perspective, um, there's events that happened around America wasn't taught to us, unless it was in a literature class, and you're learning about of mice and men, but that's about it. Or if this affects the rest of the world, then I guess but most of the things we learn in history was UK based. But obviously we did learn things like World War II, Titanic, and things like that. So yes, that. So in this subject, you're learning history of magics, and it's taught by Professor Caesar. The next subject is taught is Geography of Magics, and is taught by Professor Ripley, who is named after my Year 7 teacher named Mrs. Ripley, but I'm gonna have this character be a male teacher. So in this subject, these characters learn about the geography of magics, the entire planet, countries, cities, towns, areas in magics. They learn about the natural geography and the man-made geography. They also learn a little bit of geology and paleontology in this subject. So I guess they learn about rocks and fossilized objects. And the next subject we have is cult studies, and is taught by Professor Pocahontas. And in this subject, they learn about cults and organizations that exist within Magix. The next subject that is taught in this school is psychology, and it's not much different from psychology that's taught in the real world. So this is a universal subject, a bit like maths and science. I do think it's important for students to, learn how people think, behave, and react, as well as learning about people's personalities and how they ended up like this. And this subject is taught by Professor Ennui. Professor Ennui is non-binary and they are a therapist. The next subject that is taught in the school is divination and is taught by Professor Facilier. And don't worry, Professor Facilier is a good person in this version. And this is also inspired by Harry Potter. There's a subject that's taught by Professor Trelawney. I can't pronounce her name, but it's where she teaches about tarot cards, tea leaves things, astrology. But also think in this subject they should learn about I think it's important to learn about metaphysics, symbolisms, all the higher level things, chakras. I think that's important too. And it's important they learn about metaphysics and philosophy as well as a magic of philosophy. I think I do find that interesting because in season 2, I think Professor Avalon teaches something about like metaphysics and magic philosophy, and I think that subject can go under this. And I also think like Whiskers touched upon like opposites. So I think that would also go under the subject of divination, as well as like other symbolistic in the past. Like I think Taoism has like a bit of a study about this. I think this subject encourages students to think creatively about these things and be a little bit more imaginative. What I do dislike about Harry Potter is how, like, the characters, ridicule the subject, but this is a very useful subject, to help students to, think outside the box. And I don't see why this would be an abnormal thing to study, since, this is a magical universe. Why would it be weird if they learned about this? The next subject we have is current affairs and is taught by Professor Corona, who is a non binary teacher. In this subject, students learn about current events and affairs, as well as government and politics of Magix. And the students get to learn about debating and have debate teams in this subject. The students may have a light-hearted debate or they may have a deep discussion debate. Either way, they will have deep discussions in the subject. The next subject is taught is diversity and is taught by Professor Begum. Professor Begum is a South Asian ethnicity. She is. I wanted to have her be a little bit more Bengali inspired. So in this subject, students are taught about ethics, morals, mannerisms, being kind and empathetic, learning about different cultures and how to treat with other people. This is also a subject where students get to teach themselves about each other. So they get to learn things about each class member and, even the things that they never thought of learning about. The next subject is taught is PE, and it's just like PE in real life. Students get to, do some exercise, get their body moving, and, play some sports like football, rugby, tennis. It's important for students to get their bodies moving. And this subject is taught by Professor Ronaldo. He is inspired by Cristiano Ronaldo. In fact, you can say that he is exactly him. He is also Portuguese, so he has that similar ethnicity. And he is just as attractive as Cristiano Ronaldo. And I'm sure the students find him attractive. Also, I forgot to mention, because they are fairies, they are probably gonna learn sports that are played by fairies. They also learn how to fly and flying in PE. This was inspired by the Quidditch team that happens in Hogwarts. The next subject is martial arts and is taught by Professor Wong. She is going to be transgender. She once was a male character and now is a female character. In this subject, students are taught martial arts such as Kung Fu or Karate. This should help students fight opponents physically. The next subject is Fairy Battle and is taught by Professor Minerva. And in this subject, students are learned to fight with using magic. Both in martial arts and fairy battle, students are encouraged to battle each other. Both of these subjects should help train the students. The next subject is survival and is taught by Professor Grillis, inspired by Bear Grylls. In this subject, the students learn to survive in the wild. They learn to camp. They learn to forage for food. They learn how to make campfire. They learn how to make barbecue. They learn how to make clothes using things in the nature. They learn about some poisonous foods, the things that might be poisonous, the things they can eat or can't eat. They will also learn about different living habitats and how they can live outside the world, like living in caves, tunnels. They also take field trips. Basically, you know that one episode in Blackmoor Swamp where Professor Palladium takes them. This is what Professor Grillis will take them instead. And this is his job. Students also learn how to swim. They also learn how to take on like natural disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes, typhoons. They learn how to climb rocks. It's all about adrenaline in this subject, and they learn how to take some rides. They do some skydiving, some um, jet skiing, as well as zip lining and skiing. The next subject the students learn is weaponry and is taught by Professor Hephaestus. And I'm gonna have this teacher be non binary. I also want them to be like a cyclops. So in this subject, students learn about different weapons, whether it's long-range weapons, short-range weapons, unique weapons, some odd weapons. They also learn how to make these weapons, as well as learn how to use them. The next subject we're going to have is dance, and it's going to be taught by Professor Tutu, and I want her to be French. So in this subject, students learn how to dance, the art of dancing, and also learn how to use magic while dancing. I was inspired by this by Layla from the second season, where she had a sequence where she was dancing, and then there was that moment in the beginning of Misa's concert episode, and she's fighting with Stormy, and she used her dance magic to defeat Stormy. The next subject that is taught in this school is computers and is taught by Professor Bradbury. This is where students learn the hardware and software of computers or computer devices. This also includes things like tablets, phones, electronic devices as well. Students learn how to code, internet safety, learn how to use JavaScript, HTML, and learn how to create websites. They will also learn how to use internet jargon, things like social media, memes, and GIFs. They will also learn how to work using a computer, like writing essays on a computer. The next subject we're going to have is video games and is taught by Professor Among Us. In this subject, students will learn how to create and play video games. The next subject is media studies and is taught by Professor LD Shadowlady. LD Shadowlady is a YouTuber who is one of my favorite YouTubers. She is so great, she's excellent. I recommend checking her out. In this subject, students learn about medias of all kinds. They learn about social media and newspapers, gossip columns, as well as some journalism. They will also learn how to make YouTube videos, film, movies, TV shows. All of those things come under this subject. They will also learn useful things like advertising and marketing, as well as graphic design and logo making. Like you could say, this subject is about content creation. The next subject is photography and is taught by Professor Kanon. Like the title says it, in this subject, students learn how to, take photographs. They also learn things about cameras. The next subject is art. In this subject, students learn to paint, draw, sculpt objects, craft, and make jewelry, as well as making magic using art. In this subject, students also learn how to bring creatures to life using art. The next subject is music. In this subject, it is taught by Professor Dufour. And in this subject, students learn how to sing, dance, and make music and out of instruments. Misa would love this subject. And then we have cooking class, and it's taught by Professor Maestro. You know the guy in season one. You know the chef. So in this subject, students learn to cook, bake, and create food art, as well as heal others with using food. That part was inspired by Encanto. And then we have fashion, and this is taught by Professor Stiletto. The teacher is non binary again. Stella would love this subject, and this subject is about, making clothes, looking good. This is what this is about. This includes things like accessories, hats, watches, gloves, anything that makes you look good. And then we have the subject cosmetics, and this is taught by Professor Charles, inspired by James Charles, and he knows all about cosmetics and makeup. Not only students will learn how to use makeup, but also probably use makeup as weapons or powers and using it as useful gadgets, kind of like how Daphne would in What's New Scooby Doo. And then we have workshop and is taught by Professor Bob. In this subject, students learn to craft and build objects, things like bird houses, woodworking, um, also products like toys, furnitures, and sometimes while using magic. I guess characters like Flora or Layla would find this subject really easy. And then we have Dark Arts, which is taught by Professor Maleficent, who is inspired by Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, who is a dark fairy. But in this version, she's going to be a good person, but also having her personality. So in this subjects, students learn how to use dark arts, things like curses, hexes, and mayhem. Students also learn how to, manipulate others, use things like dead people, dead creatures, nightmarish creatures, and nightmares. They also learn how to, think about evil beings. If they get immersed into dark arts, they will know how to face it. And then we have relic studies, which is taught by Professor Shayla. This was inspired by Magination. In this subject, students will learn about relics and magical objects, as well as learn how to use them. And I guess we can have drama teacher Professor Psychowitz. And in this subject, students learn about performing arts and acting and learning to use magic using acting. So far, those are the subjects I can think of right now. If you have any ideas of a subject and a teacher, let me know in the comments. We have other staff members too who aren't the teachers. For example, we have a receptionist named Pamela. We have cafeteria chefs Nikki, Ricky, and Dicky. We have school janitors Laurel and Yanni. They're both non binaries. We have the school technician, Sandy Cheeks. You would go to her if you have a computer problem or need to fix something, like if it's technical based or something like that. And then we have the school guidance counselor, Lane Alexander. So you would go to him if you have trouble, whether you're at home or at school. Whatever problem you have, you can go to him for therapy. And then we have the school gardener. The name is Spinach. And Spinach looks after the garden of the school as well as the field, and helping the landscape of the school. They also mow the lawn and cut some trees. That's their job. We have the school librarian, Barbatea. And then we have nurse, Dr. Victoria. I don't know what her real name was in the show. I think she had a name in the comics, but I don't think she had a name in the show. But I'm just gonna call her Dr. Victoria. And those are the staff members I can think of right now for having in the school. If you have any ideas of what staff members we can have in the school, let me know in the comments. I'm so sorry it took me so long to explain the teachers of the school. And I guess, I wrapped up most things about Alfea's um, world building and, facts about the school. I think what I'm gonna do I'm gonna move the world building about the rest of Magix in the next episode, because this is gonna I didn't realize this was I didn't realize this part of the video was taking so long, so I would say I'm gonna wrap things up for this part of this episode, and I guess Professor Farragonda is gonna wrap this part of this episode, and she addresses to the students that they can go to their dorms and they should make sure to come back to the assembly hall. So Professor Farragonda gets to explain the world building of Magix even further. Also, I think I'm gonna have the students and the teachers of year 8 to year 11 to be shadow people. If you know, in the Ruby universe, in season 1, the background characters would be shadow people. I think that's a good idea because they are considered as background characters, and I feel like these are characters, aren't made to be important. The attention should be focused on the important characters, and having shadow people around helps the important characters stand out. So, Professor Fargonda, finished the assembly. It's now over. She didn't want the students to be kept waiting. So she wanted to continue discussing about the world building of the magics in the next day. So in the next episode, I'm probably gonna talk about the world building of magics. So in the next bit, Bloom and Stella, and Kiko with the luggages, they head towards a corridor leading to the dorms. They have a tour guide helping them, guide to the dorm rooms. I think everyone has that. And while they are heading towards the dorms, Bloom and Stella are both nervous because, it's both of their first day at Alfea. And I think I'm gonna cut out the things they say in both Cinelium, Nick, and Focus. The one thing in the Nick and Cinelium dub, Stella, talks about the three schools, but I think I'm not gonna have her explain about that. First thing, there's more than three skills, but I also feel like this bit needs to be explained in a future episode. Um, and then in the Focus dub, um, um, I think Bloom, mentions about connecting to the Winx. I do like that idea as well, but I also think this is also something that I want to be brought up in future episodes. And I just want Bloom and Stella to just go to their dorms and chill. They don't need to discuss those things now. And I feel like Stella shouldn't be the one to explain those things. Come on, like she's a fashionista and she likes to have fun and chill. I feel like you want someone like a teacher explaining that to you. So the tour guide helped the Bloom and Stella end up in the area, and they see the area for the first time. Um, the area, well, they have a common area, so this is the living room. They also have a dining room, a kitchen in the space, as well as a bathroom and a shower, a gym. They have their own gym, and as well as a snooker table. And there seems to be six bedrooms. And right now, the bedrooms have a minimalistic style right now because, of course, the fairies haven't, decorated their rooms yet to personalize them. Blue's bedroom is going to be the first one, and Stella's bedroom is going to be the second one next to hers. So Bloom and Stella, go to their rooms. Bloom, leaves her luggage behind, and she comes out with Kiko, and Stella comes out in her room, leaving her luggage behind as well. And they are both curious who else are living in their area. They've noticed that someone else has already been here before them. There seems to be a girl in the fifth room, so they both go and investigate. And when they go to the fifth dream, they meet Flora. And I wanted to keep this scene similar to the Nick version only, because Bloom doesn't lie about her being in a different planet. We know that she is from Earth, and she doesn't need to lie about that. And I prefer the Nick version of meeting Flora like this, like stepping on the plant by accident. And because Bloom, was felt awkward about stepping on Flora's plant, um, uh, she stepped backwards and she bumped into a different character, and the character is Techna. And I think I'm gonna also keep this Nick version as well. Like we're not gonna have Techna explain Callisto because Bloom didn't bring that up, and I think I like in the neckline of like Techna saying walking backwards is irrational because it is. So Techna's bedroom is going to be the fourth one. And then Flora, Stella, and Bloom introduced themselves to Techno, and Techno is hoping to make friends with them as well. So for the next bit, I'm gonna merge all three dubs together. For this bit, we have Stella introducing herself to Techno. Techno has heard a lot of rumors about Stella, about her incident in Magic's primary school. The explosion Stella made was quite infamous. And then, as soon as Techno says the word infamous, we're gonna have the focus part, and this is where Misa announces herself with a surprise. I think her line in the focus dub, was really funny, and of course, the other girls laughed at her joke. And I think I'm gonna keep the next part where Misa introduces herself to the girls. And Stella explains to the girls that, she was trying to make a new shade of pink. And instead of Techna, I think I'm gonna have Misa say it. She wonders if Stella was able to make the new shade of pink. And, Stella said she couldn't able to. And I don't think, let's be real, I don't think you can really make new shade of a color. It will always exist. You can't make a new shade of it. And Misa's bedroom is gonna be the third one. The sixth bedroom is quite vacant right now. No one has claimed it yet. But who knows, the sixth member might use it. And this is the where I want to wrap things up for this episode. We're not gonna have Kiko, biting off Flora's plant. At least not in this episode. That will happen in the future episodes. Possibly. I don't make promises over that. And we're not gonna have the Winx going to downtown Magix yet. That's also gonna be in the future episodes. And this is how we're gonna end this. The group, decide to make friends with each other, and the episode ends with five of the girls taking a photo of themselves. So the episode was a group selfie. They used Techno's phone for this. By the way, this is a homework for you guys. Try to recreate and redesign the main five girls' new outfits and designs. This should be fun. You can share them in the comments down below. And this is it. The end of the episode. Roll the credits, and then we have the outro. And it looks like I'm done talking about this episode. I had really fun making it. I guess this video is like more than 1 hour long, so sorry for those who might not enjoy having a video being more than 1 hours. But I hope you enjoyed what you've learnt. Anyways, if you enjoyed listening about this episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and have a lovely day.